fear the age of heroes would never come again.
It will. It has to.
All right, everybody, I've got a little special video here because the Snyder Cut, it dropped. Many of you who are watching this have seen this. We're going to put all the spoilers in here, but I got a special guest, my man, my friend, Nick Gregorio in the house. Nick, what is up, my man? In the back
What's
cave.
going on? Be teasy. Yeah, I'm in the cave. I'm a young Bruce Wayne. Not so young anymore. What's going on, Be teasy? It's good to see you, if virtually.
Yes, I know. I mean, it's been a while. And for people that are wondering, okay, who is Nick? How is he related to you? Well, Nick and I worked together back when DC Universe's platform had DC Daily. That's how we met. We became bros. What was your technical title? You were like everything. I felt like you were a producer, director, like, I don't know, so many things.
Technically, I was executive producer and then the director of the show on shoot days. So
yeah, you would tell me what to do.
Yeah,
you would tell me what to do.
Brian. No, keep it going. No, man, we used to have so much fun. We had the big couch that was so difficult to shoot because it was gigantic, and we had to put like 28 people on there at a time. We were trying to convince people that comic books are still cool.
Hey, we're still trying to do that, bro.
Still trying to do that, but
yeah.
No, man. And I've just been directing. I worked for Machinima before that. I worked for Studio 71, which was the Collective. I've done a few feature films, so I've just been out here just hustling, EPing and directing stuff, and here I am in my makeshift kind of studio workspace.
So we've kind of like established at least how we both, and look, if you're watching this and you're listening, you might actually disagree with these takes, but that's okay, right? But fine. We're talking here about the Snyder Cut, and because this is his vision of these, I want to jump right into it. And I know you have so much pent up. you're like ready to explode. You've been texting me like, dude, when are we gonna do this? When are we gonna do this? I'm like, it's only been a day. Just get me 2 days. We're gonna do it. You're like, I gotta talk about this. So these are your freshest takes, your freshest of freshest takes. So I would love to hear, starting with you, your first impressions of the movie. There was so much to go through, but we're gonna talk all about it. We can go as long as we want. But what were your first impressions of the Snyder Cut version of Justice League?
Very first impression, I loved it. That like before I can like nitpick or go into things that didn't work or could have worked, I'm like a more is more with superheroes. I'm like more is more. I'm also like, I like The Irishman. I'm a filmmaker. So if a director's like, I have a vision, I'm like, allow me to see that vision. Like if you put the work in, then I want to see it. Like, so right off the bat, I was like, love this, love the tone, love the style. Yep. Does a lot of things right with the characters in a comic book sense. Like, again, referencing BVS and like the motivations and the catalyst of that, but you get a very comic book accurate Cyborg. You get a really comic book accurate Barry Allen in a lot of ways. Like, because Barry Allen isn't like Wally West. I know, like, I grew up with Wally West. Barry Allen doesn't have, like, he's not really a jokester, and he's not really like, he's kind of weird, like there was two different Barry Allens. There was the Barry Allen that sacrificed himself in Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then there's the current Barry Allen after Flash Rebirth. But there's never, I don't have the same crystallized version of Barry Allen that I would say had with Wally West, where he was like the young Turk. He was a little bit of like snarky and had some comedy. So like, this was an interesting take on Barry Allen, but I thought it worked fairly well. Aquaman, I think that's the best way to play that character. I've always loved the idea of like someone who looks like a Pacific Islander, a person that like an island, a person that lives on an island that has tan skin, that is like, like that to me always makes sense for Aquaman. Like, I think the blonde haired, blue eyed version just never tracks, because you're like, why would he look like that if he lived in the depths of the ocean or lived on an island or was riding on dolphins? Like, he'd be tan, he'd be like golden brown, like he'd be out, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make sense. And so the people of Atlantis, Wonder Woman is sick in this,
dude.
Wonder Woman is like, I'll say that you still see, I think the shortcoming of Gal Gadot is her acting in certain moments. But in terms of when Wonder Woman is fighting and being that strong hero, embodying the Greek god, you're like, wow. Okay.
I mean,
you touch upon Wonder Woman, it washed the bad taste of Woman 84 right out of my mouth watching this movie. Like 84 hurt me. 84 like killed part of me. I couldn't,
Dude,
you know, and I know a lot of people. I mean, I know
it ruined my Christmas. I was like, what the heck? And then
so
Soul
many
saved
people. Oh, that's
it was just it hurt. And so when I saw this, I'm like, damn, like he gave us back the Wonder Woman that was his vision. And we saw it. I mean, even starting from that hostage scene, when we talk about, there's so many things we can get into, and we're going down the list of the characters, but just the way it was built, the tension, the drama, the power. Just little subtle things where I believe, because I watched the Whedon cut a day before I saw Snyder Cut. In the Whedon cut, she kind of just throws the suitcase up out of the building and explodes on top of the roof. In the Snyder Cut, she ascends in the air, high above. She throws it. It's this like glorious slow-mo shot. You see down the suitcase and her just kind of like letting it go. And then all of a sudden there's this huge explosion. And it, you know, that's the kind of the Zack Snyder approach of making it epic. But she deserved to see that as an epic scene. And then she just blows the dude away with the bracelet.
And then she like eats the explosion, right? Yeah. And like everyone's like, oh, okay, we got her. Yeah. Talking about the Whedon cut, and I think you can't ignore this. I don't know what the heck Joss Whedon did. I really don't know. I don't know, because as a director, if you bring me in, right, and I'm like, okay, dude made a movie, I'll just cut it a little bit tighter so it hits a 2.5 hour runtime, and we'll release this thing. Every single scene and Joss Whedon reshot a lot, that he reshot was terrible in comparison to what was in the movie. What that Wonder Woman scene, I'm like, why would you
why would you change that? Why would you
change that? It made so much more sense for it to be this brutal situation. He like watered it down so much and made things so goofy. It just didn't work with the characters that Snyder was playing with. I think that the scene that most stands out is the tiny wind-up penguin scene on the plane. So we know in the Whedon cut, you know, Ben Affleck is like bloated and an alcoholic and going through rehab at the time. And it looks like Austin Powers' jet. The lighting is so bad. And it's so he's like, oh, Master Bruce, it makes us miss the days of tiny wind-up penguins. Like that has any relevance on this story. And then when you see the Snyder version, you're like, why would you reshoot this? It's on like an Air Force One style military plane. Alfred and him are still having a nice moment. It wasn't like it was dark and brooding. And he's like, oh, Barry Allen, what's up with this guy? We got to track him down. And you know, Alfred's like, dude, maybe you're pushing it a little bit too hard. But it looked great. It played well. I was like, did you really reshoot this whole setup so that you can do a tiny wind-up penguin joke? Like you spent millions of dollars to add a one-liner about tiny wind-up penguins?
There were so many things, right? It wasn't just reshoots. He basically reshot a movie that as a hired gun. You know, look, we have to, if we teleport ourselves back in time, you know, we know that Marvel was like peak Marvel domination at the time. Yeah. The Avengers had come out, and the studio heads were quite honestly insecure, right? They were nervous. Batman versus Superman had really poor critic reviews. And so they're like, of course, the stupidest thing to do is get nervous, be insecure, and be like, we got to do what they're doing, knowing you're not going to do what they do at that level. And you shouldn't even try, quite honestly. It's going to look like a poor attempt. They did the whole, okay, we're going to get a director that did a Marvel movie that had success. We're going to bring him over here. We're going to have that same success. I watched the Whedon cut, and when I first watched it again, I'm like, okay, because I just remember when I first saw it, I felt icky inside. I felt like this is horrible. Like this made me just like, I'll never watch this again. So I watched the Whedon cut a day before the Snyder cut, and when I watch it, I say to myself, okay, this isn't that bad, but I don't like it. Yeah. Then when I watched the Snyder cut, I'm like, that was trash.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, I'm not trying to pile on Joss Whedon, but the decisions made, unless someone was over his head telling him you have to do this exactly, I don't understand why what we saw was the final product. I don't understand it.
I completely agree. Like, that's the question I kept asking myself. Why? It's almost, and I'm not making any like assertions here, but it feels like he was sabotaging the movie to kill the Snyderverse. Because when you see every single setup that he changed or reshot, I was like, why wouldn't you use like these gorgeous sets? Like the Star Lab set is dope as all get out. Ryan Cho is in it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have like the Atom in there. Like, you have all this groundwork that it's not offensive. It's not violent. It's not dark and broody. I'm like, why would you get rid of that? Like, why would you make Henry Cavill reshoot everything with a fake mustache comp when his scenes were better? Like, it doesn't make right. It's like, for a line, like, to pick up a few lines here and there, you like jeopardize. Because me as a director, I would never do that. I would never do it to another person's vision where I would force a reshoot that would jeopardize the integrity of a movie. Like, if you were like, hey, we can cast me in it, but I got to remove your beard digitally, I'd be like, don't do it then. Like, we're not going to do it. Like, that's not right. I mean, doesn't that seem insane? Doesn't that seem like utterly like preposterous?
It's totally like what we saw was insane. Like, it's almost like, wait, WB, you guys were that stupid to do what you did and approve it, right? It's not like we're saying one person in a room watches and says that's what we're going with. Multiple people sign off on this stuff. Multiple people agree to completely eliminate the soul of the movie, which is Cyborg. Like, Zack Snyder talked about it so much, and we didn't really understand how important Cyborg was to the Snyder Cut. You watch the Whedon Cut. It has no heart. It has no soul at all. It's a disconnected.
He does nothing in the
There's
Whedon
nothing.
Cut.
Nothing, right?
So, okay, fine. He decides to take out Cyborg for whatever reasons. We've read plenty of reports about Joss Whedon behind the scenes.
I don't even know why he would do that.
Right? But he takes him out. Therefore, okay, fine. I'll maybe give him the benefit of the doubt is because for whatever reason he removed Cyborg, that he removed the development between his family. He removes the Ryan Choi scenes. All that, though, completely kills the soul of the movie. And so when you watch the Snyder Cut, you're like, my God, like, just Cyborg's role in the entire thing changes the entire movie.
No, I mean, it makes the mother boxes irrelevant, like completely irrelevant. Cyborg is the bridge from human beings and the gods. He's the bridge from apocalypse and like the gods and the technology. And I also misspoke earlier. I said Ryan Cho. I meant Ryan Choi.
I know you meant Choi. I know you meant Choi.
And I was just like, I was like, I can't believe. And again, in our current day of diversity, how is that the move to eliminate? Basically, his mom doesn't even show up in the Whedon Cut. A very strong part. It's a small, but it's a strong role in the Snyder Cut. It's an excellent role. It's like the football stuff looked dope, looked amazing. Awesome. I was like, it's all those things where I'm like, why would you eliminate production value? That just never tracks for me. Like, why would you eliminate something that looks good and plays well and looks expensive to just get to these lame story beats? And now we got to go to the big daddy himself, Steppenwolf.
Yeah, I was just
why did you replace Steppenwolf? He looked dope. Because again, that's not a design like, in the comic, he's very much like an Arthurian, like lame kind of Robin Hood looking dude, and like he's had different versions. He's had like more like barbaric versions.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, we're going with a straight up alien race creature man thing. And I was like, okay, that's not exactly how I would want to see Steppenwolf. And then the armor, I was like, okay, but in execution, looked beautiful, man. Looked awesome. Like his eyes were very like emotive, and
his face was just really good.
Yeah. He had a lot of like really trembling good. And like there was a lot of performance, and the VO was banging. His voice acting was banging,
dude.
And you saw what they replaced him with, and you're like, but why would you do that?
And then again, when we talk about okay, here's the other issue right behind the scenes. After they were all insecure about the Marvel Studios and what they were doing, Zack Snyder had originally from what I had read and from what people said, he was originally trying to make it 2 movies. So that 4-hour runtime, right, split up. You can't tell this story in 2 hours. You just can't. I mean, we got so much character development from Steppenwolf himself.
Yeah.
Like that, I love when we can at least understand why a villain is doing what he's doing, and and it makes sense. And so you go, okay, I get him, and whether you empathize with him or not, you at least feel something about them instead of this is just some big, huge guy breaking stuff and wants to get a MacGuffin, right? So Steppenwolf got a lot of character development as well, which was important to make this movie feel connected and as deep as it was.
And weighty. And like why like why do you need to bring Superman back from the dead? Because you're not just dealing with a guy, you're not dealing with the Doomsday Monster where like we just got to beat it into submission. Like, no, you're dealing with someone with a plan. Not only is he trying to like hurt you, he's trying to like destroy the earth and make it like rule the planet basically and make you live in a fiery pit. Like, no, that is, that's a reason to bring a dude back from the dead. And it's weird because I kind of think there is a really good, and again, I'll take the full indulgence of a 4-hour movie, but I think there is an excellent 2-hour and 45-minute theatrical cut that we would have got if whatever happened back in the, back when they took Snyder off the project and they parted ways on it, if they would have just let him finish this movie and been like, yo, you got 2 hours and 45 minutes. We're not giving you a full 3 hours. And he fought, so it wasn't 2.5 hours. I think that theatrical cut, I want to see. I want to see something that doesn't have, because for me, the things that hurt the movie the most, and I'm not like, and this is truly like critique, were the new things that were shot, were the fan service things. Spoiler, but there's a scene between Martha and Lois Lane. And it turns out that Martha is the Martian Manhunter. And I'm like, that completely undercut your scene. This scene is so important between Martha and Lois because they're the only two people that know Superman is Clark Kent on an emotional level. It's his mother and that's his, wife, lover. Like they're the two people that know him the most intimately on this planet. And it's like, oh, psych, it was Martian Manhunter. Doesn't he look cool? Like, no, like he doesn't look cool. And I don't need to see it.
I hate that stuff.
That was corny.
I was more confused by that too. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, why do we do that? I literally was like, wait, why do we do that? Okay, what? I mean, again, the movie wasn't perfect. We loved it a lot, but yeah, that scene was one of those. I'm like, okay, sure.
And then the nightmare epilogue, which again is like, I like some aspects of it. You don't need it. It's not really helping the story that was just told. I'm trying to think. There was a few other ones where I could tell that I was like, I don't think you needed that. Go
ahead.
I think they did a Gal Gadot pickup for performance in her scene with Cyborg. Because I was like, why would they composite her close-up? So her close-up is like really bad green screen. But you could tell that the original shot was on a set, like a sound stage. And I'm like, oh, shoot. I was like, I wonder if they were like, yo, Gal, do you want to like beef up this performance?
Did she shoot more stuff for the Snyder Cut though? I don't
know.
Okay.
I don't know. But I don't know if maybe it was other pickups from before. But that, the street scene, it looks really fake. Like the background looks.
Yeah.
And only in her coverage. Yeah.
I remember even in the original theatrical release, there were parts that totally looked even worse green screen, quite honestly.
Oh, yeah.
So I think probably my brain was already used to that idea of like, because there was a shot where I think it showed Wonder Woman looking towards Cyborg and it just looked like totally fake to me.
Yeah. There are some sloppy things that I'm like, I don't know if that was from beforehand, if that is again, like studio notes that Snyder had to deal with, but there's a lot of shot reverse conversations that just feel very boring compared to some of the other aspects of the movie that I think are so strong. And it was like, you could definitely tell that's an executive note. Like we need to explain this further, or they need to have a conversation kind of spelling this out. And Snyder was like, yeah, I'll give you that, but I'm going to shoot it in the lamest, weakest way possible. And then you tell me to keep it in the movie. Is that right? Like, it's just when they're on the carrier together and it's like Batman just has his hands folded and Wonder Woman's like, but Steppenwolf is really bad. And he's like, well, how do we beat him? And it's just like back and forth. But I will say the last third of the movie is hands down up there with the best aspects of Iron Man, Infinity War. When Superman came back, I was choked up, man. I was so choked up. I'm getting chills now just thinking about. That was expertly done. All the buildup of Man of Steel in the BVS, into him fighting them, and like Jacket and not knowing what's going on, then seeing Lois, I was like, oh snap! I was like,
that's why I loved.
He tied. There hadn't been really too much connective tissue between the movies as much as we would have liked, right? We have the first nightmare scene in Batman versus Superman where, right, he has that dream and Flash comes out, and it's never ever really addressed ever again in any other movie. It's kind of like, what was that? So we will touch upon the nightmare scene later, or the additional epilogue, but there were so many connective beats. Even when something as subtle as when Superman walks through the Kryptonian spaceship and you hear the voices of his father.
His fathers.
Oh my God,
you hear
the soundtrack just is going.
You hear the
voices. You see the suits, multiple suits. I was like, damn. I was getting like goosebumpy and stuff. I'm like, this is what I'm talking about, where we can now reference those movies that now are actually looked more fondly upon than they were when they were first released. And so, again, you do have to follow this up, but guess what? You also have to follow all the Marvel stuff for things to mean things later on. So, to that same respect, that happened here in this movie, and woo, yeah.
Oh,
I'm not even the biggest Superman.
Man?
I'm not even the biggest Superman stan, but man, I loved that scene.
That scene, all the Superman stuff just paid off so well when he's on the farm and he's like, my mother loved this place, and then he realizes like who he is, and he's like, I love this place. I was like, I had a golf ball in my throat. I was like, God. I was like, it's Superman. I'm like, I have chills right now talking. I'm like, that's it. And I'm like, it took 3 movies, but that's it. Now he's Superman. Like it took him dying and losing all that to realize that he can't be on the fence about stuff, that he needs to be a hero. And they nailed it. And I'm like, why would you deprive audiences of that? Like, really? Like, why would you do that to them? And I mean, we're talking about now 4 years ago. Why would you do that to them 4 years ago? Because think about this, Brian. This is the point I've been making to a few people. If they were to let Snyder release this, then Justice League Part 2, like they had planned, he'd be done now. And we'd be moving on. And just like we are trying to move on, and we can't because we're kind of stuck in this middle ground. They would be done with it. And Aquaman still would have came out. Wonder Woman 84 still would have came out. Shazam still would have came out. It wouldn't have affected anything else. Matt Reeves' Batman still could have been developed. Because remember, Ben Affleck was still Batman when he was like, oh, Matt Reeves can do that movie or whatever.
Yeah, he was still on board at the time.
Yeah.
Initially.
So all everything could have played out exactly the way it is now, and no hurt feelings. They would have had a 4-movie like masterpiece of what Snyder made that could have been selling DVDs and Blu-ray box sets, and none of this drama would have been going on. And
now, look, you might think, oh, they finally, this is such a unique situation. We've never seen a movie like this where social media and fan support and the vocality of the fan base really did influence this whole thing happening. But also, what we have to look at is this movie what happened because we have the pandemic. There isn't content coming out. HBO Max has a streaming service. They need subscriptions. Let's not give WB too much credit for serving the fans, because to me, they're using this more as, hey, we need people to subscribe to our service for the long term. We're going to invest in this because we don't have anything else that will get people that excited. So we're doing this not because people deserve to see the Snyder Cut or we necessarily wanted them to from the start. We're doing this because we want this to drive subscriptions to HBO Max.
Dude, never get it twisted. It is always about money. It's about money. These characters are brands. They're whatever you think they are to you, they are definitely not that to the people that own them.
No
and I'm
way.
speaking from a firsthand experience, a very firsthand experience.
Yeah.
I love these characters with all my heart and soul. And, you know, it's what got me into filmmaking. Like I was an early young comic book reader, and, you know, comic books like storyboards. They marry very well with movies. They're trying to capture motion with still images, and that's what a movie is. And so many people that work for these companies do not like what they work on at all. And they don't. And the reason Marvel is successful is because Kevin Feige respected the characters for what they were. Now, I have plenty of gripes with Marvel movies. I don't like the serialization of movies. I think they try to do it over way too many movies, and they watered down a lot of stuff in the process. But it takes a real comic book fan to put 20 check marks and at the 20th write Infinity Gauntlet, because that's insane.
Dude.
That's something you never when they said that, I was like, nah, you're not gonna do that. Like, that's not even that good of a comic. Like, that's like I was like, that's like a crazy, that's like take all your action figures out of a bin and like, dude, oh man, they're all fighting each other. Like, they're not gonna do that because that's crazy. So I think one of the big problems, especially with WB and all the success they have with their characters, when it comes to movies, and I think that possibly Walter Hamada is having a problem with this too right now, is they always make excuses for the characters. Remember how much everyone loved the Nolan verse? Because it was real. He made it real. Mm-hmm. Because like they're so afraid of embracing the fact that they are superheroes. They're always trying to give you a grounded inroad. So they don't alienate, like, because filmmakers don't like superheroes. They think superheroes are like kid shit. They think it's for little man children or whatever. And that's been the case for a long time. Yeah. And they're like, look, everyone always brings up Martin Scorsese because like my favorite director, and he doesn't like Marvel movies. And I was like, that would be like asking a Michelin star chef, does he like Popeye's hot chicken sandwich? And he would be like, that's a great
analogy.
Absolutely not. That is an affront to everything I've done and like, you know, sacrificed throughout my career. No, I do not. Like, there's a guy that makes movies about people, about honesty and truth and realness and rawness and humanity. Like, what would he like about a movie and a dude dressed in a star-spangled costume fighting a robot guy? Like, that's not not what he's into, right?
Did he say he likes the Snyder Cut though? I don't know if this was just a fake internet headline.
Oh, who knows? I mean, he might. It's probably fake, but I think what like he's trying to get at is every movie he makes means something, and it's very obvious that every movie Marvel make doesn't necessarily mean something unto itself. Like some of them are just stepping stones to a bigger thing. And again, that's very comic book of them. That's how comic books work. They're serialized. Yep. I do think WB needs someone who understands what they have and embraces what they have.
But that's so hard. You know how hard that is, especially on a high level. It's really hard because, you know, Feige is like a unicorn, because when you get to that high level of executive decision making, you're not the person who grew up collecting comics and still reads them today. That's just the fact.
You're probably like an Ivy League graduate that doesn't give a flying fuck about what you're making. You're like, okay, cool. Like, does this make money? Let's make Tom and Jerry. Like, that's why they make Tom and Jerry, because they don't actually care about Tom and Jerry. Like, that's why they make Tom and Jerry and miss the entire point of Tom and. I was like, this has nothing to do with Tom and Jerry. Like, I don't know.
I didn't even watch it.
It's terrible. I have kids, so I get stuck watching that type of stuff. But it's why you see things like that, and you're like, why would you make that? Like, who put the gun to your head to be like, make a Tom and Jerry?
Somebody did. They looked through the Rolodex and they're like, we need to do. Someone's like, I grew up with that. We need to do that. Someone high up there. That's all it came. Yeah. Okay, let's keep on talking. We're gonna keep on moving through the movie here.
All right, sorry, sorry.
No. We're having fun, but I want some people are like, why are we talking about Tom and Jerry, bro? I'm like, because we like it. Okay.
For you,
even though we might have touched upon them, favorite character or maybe character moments from the movie for you?
Favorite character I'll give a favorite character moment for each character.
Damn, let's go.
Bruce Wayne out in Iceland or wherever on the horse, because to me, that is some Bruce Wayne type stuff. That is where like his money, his skills, and his resolve all come into focus, and there's not a bat suit to be found. And I'm like, the fact that that wasn't in the theatrical cut, I'm like, why would you omit that? All that's so cool. And then him like getting off of like an Apache helicopter,
yes, dude,
stepping off it and then getting onto a private jet. You're like, that is a Batman that's been working for 25 years. Like that is what I wanted to see when you're telling me there's this old seasoned Batman. Now you're getting to see that world, and it was so big and expansive. Wonder Woman, her fighting Steppenwolf in the finale was brilliant. In particular, her decapitating Steppenwolf. Because I was like,
the last send off.
I was like, yes, she would.
That's what gods would do.
Yes,
That's what they would do.
Why would you keep him alive? He has no intention but to ruin Earth.
Exactly.
Like he's not gonna reform. For Superman, really, it was that moment when he remembered who he was. There was a lot of great moments, but when that one hit, a lot different. I was like, oh, done.
He might cry again, guys. He might cry again. Don't talk about too much.
Barry Allen Flash, the Speed Force moment at the end. Bananas.
That blew my mind.
I sat up on the edge of my seat. I was like, are we doing this? Like, I was like, wait, are we doing? Because, you know, people that are watching this have probably have already seen it. The original cut the ending was so bland and anticlimactic, and it didn't mean anything.
My toes hurt. How do my toes hurt?
I hate that. That was so horrible, right?
Dude, it was so bad. I died when I saw
it. The ending
was completely different, with Cyborg trying to split up the unity of the mother boxes. I didn't even see it coming. It was so good, right? I was like, what are they gonna do here? I was expecting something to be like, like
I was like, it's over. Ending. They all died.
But I mean, how gorgeous did that look? And dude, it was just like, it was.
So we had like a high benchmark with Quicksilver in the X-Men movies. How did Snyder blow that out of the water? Do you remember in the Whedon cut, like how bad the Flash's weird figure skatey running looked? How did it have it a little bit in times better in this?
I felt like I saw a little bit of figure skating run here.
Maybe it was a little, but it made sense though. The way he was moving. Dude, that sequence at the end, I was like, wow, talk about giving all your characters a moment.
That's what I'm saying. This is a type of movie that when we can go back to theaters, if they put it up on IMAX, I'm going to go see this in a theater.
It deserves.
I mean, you and I are going to probably go together, quite honestly. No one else is going to be like, wait, 4 hours? Like, yeah, 4 hours. Come on, let's go.
So Cyborg, I got to say all the stuff, like everything they included, because I was going into this, I wasn't looking forward because I thought it was going to be tedious. I thought a lot of his backstory stuff was going to be tedious and boring, but man, the Star Lab stuff into him with his mother and the football game stuff, I was like, it was just the right amount, just sprinkled throughout the whole movie, that I was like, bravo, man. Like, because again, we were dealing with gods, and you're like, how is this everyday thing going to fit in and make sense and not feel shoehorned and not feel like an after school movie? And they nailed it. They really nailed all of that.
Totally agree.
Aquaman, it's that first scene. That first scene, the maintaining what he was doing, like the early trailer stuff, that's what got me excited for this movie to begin with. Before any of the Snyder Cut nonsense, I was like, oh, it's like, okay. Like Aquaman's in some remote town and Bruce Wayne has to track him down. Like that's such a table setter for what you're getting for the rest of this. Alfred's good in this. The scene where he's like showing Diana how to make tea. Brilliant moment.
Totally moment. So like control freaky. Like he cannot let go of letting someone do something like that.
You can't let this goddess make a cup of tea because she's just let it mash and I was like, it's so good. So good. Like, so yeah, that was and Steppenwolf, I think Steppenwolf just impressed me with the scene where he's talking to Desaad and you could see his desperation, and they gave you the close up, and like he has like very human eyes. That really sold me on Steppenwolf. So how about you? What were some of the moments or character moment that really got you?
I think so obviously we talked about Cyborg enough. We both love what they did with Cyborg 100%. I think also the Flash, Barry Allen in the Whedon cut, he just came off kind of like too quirky, annoying, too jokey. This one, from right out from the gates, he is still kind of quirky, but it's not as like out of place. Like, oh, you almost like expected, oh, here we go, there's gonna be some stupid Flash comment. His moments, even seeing Iris for the first time, that whole Speed Force scene, and then just grabbing the damn hot dog and just like,
yeah, it's great.
Kind of back to like, I mean, it was good. It was so good. And we're looking at a very young Barry Allen that doesn't really know everything too. Like he hasn't figured it all out per se. Yeah. So I thought that his depiction made me enjoy Ezra Miller as the Flash more than I did before, because I remember watching the first movie. Maybe we're also kind of people that were fans of the CW show really loved Grant Gustin's depiction of it, and it was the modern kind of current take of like, oh yeah, that's the Flash of our generation right now. But I actually enjoyed Ezra Miller's take to the point where I definitely want to see the Flashpoint movie now. Whereas maybe this movie doesn't, with this Snyder Cut doesn't happen, I'm going to be a lot more lukewarm about it, even if Michael Keaton is in it, even if Ben Affleck is in it. I'm kind of like, So I really liked what we got from Ezra Miller. He had more depth. His story was more built out, and it just didn't seem like out of place. There was even a moment, I don't know if you caught this or remember this, but when they first are rescuing the kidnapped people in kind of the tunnel, it wasn't the nuclear silo, that's later, but the Whedon cut has Flash like towards the end of the scene kind of fall and land on top of Wonder Woman. Yeah. This is kind of like awkward, like, awkward moment, guy on top of girl, right?
Yeah.
And it made me, right? That doesn't exist in the Snyder Cut at all. None of that, right?
None of it. They're heroes also in the Snyder Cut. They're not goofballs. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah,
exactly.
So that's like a really subtle moment that only took 5 seconds to decide I'm going to include this in my version of the movie or not. Like that is just one of those kind of small but big moments that just shows you how important a filmmaker and their vision can completely change what we get on screen and the entire narrative that forms around those, because those little moments actually become a part of this character. So
I mean, it's because I remember Whedon made the choice with the Flash to have him be such a novice that he wouldn't know how to handle himself in a fight. I'm like, my man moves at the speed of light. Do you think he doesn't know how to handle that? Do you think he caught a batarang? He knows how to handle himself in it. Like in the previous scene, he caught a batarang. So I love that, like that whole, like, I just push people. You're like, what do you mean? The dude, it's not even like you don't even have to do much if someone's standing still. Like, of course, that's like the first thing he did. He took out the bank robber. Remember in the surveillance footage. So like the fact that Whedon decided to camp him up with a bunch of cornball lines.
Too much
corny shit. I think it was really fun how reverent he was, like towards Superman, towards the idea of superheroes, that he was like kind of part of this team. I thought that was really interesting and fun. It had like a very Wally West vibe to it, like comic book Wally West. But no, in that sequence where he was like, what do you want me to do? And he's like helping the people out, and he like saves them all from the falling rocks. Again, that looks stunning the way they did that.
That was super cool.
They didn't have any of this fast motion running, which I was like so happy about, because I hate seeing that. I hate seeing fast motion running. I think there's nothing that looks cheaper than someone running fast, sped up in post against a green screen than superimposed. I love that it was just like flashes of him because you could barely see him. Oh, he's the Flash. And then like he could handle himself. You were almost like, oh man, if the Flash had a little bit more confidence, he might have gave Steppenwolf a run for his money in this moment.
I mean, he can whether it was clumsy or not about it, I mean, he could still avoid getting hit by Superman for the most part. You know?
But going back to that tunnel scene, because I think that is of everything in the movie that most closely resembles the Whedon cut, right? Because I think that's we have to refer to it now, the Whedon cut. And the
we do, right?
I think the most was used from that. man, does it play so much stronger. And it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite scene. There's some weird elements to it. They like walk up the stairs. I was like, you didn't need to show them walking up the stairs together. It's kind of goofy to me. Like, I think they could have cut right in when they get to the point where there's the broken bridge.
Yeah.
It's a really nice shot. Like, it's all of them walking up staircases. And I'm like, why do you need to show like a bunch of people that move faster than Batman walking behind Batman up the staircase? There you go. That's a critique of the movie. But just the Cyborg caring about his father. And he's like, I came back for you. He's like, you're my father after all. And you're like, oh, like it's not this terrible relationship that was in the Whedon cut. And it's like, then you get the Flash holding his own. Wonder Woman just wrecking kids, fighting.
Wonder Woman is so badass in this movie. God.
And that's where you see Batman is like, he's barely hanging on to like the Batman
so
of
true.
it all.
So
like
true. So true.
You know, and then the Nightcrawler, I know that's like kind of you either hate it or love it. I think it works. It plays. But it's Aquaman,
fine. I mean, it's not bad.
Yeah. Aquaman coming to rescue them, Cyborg commandeering the Nightcrawler, all that stuff plays so much better. One, there's a better score. The color grade.
I was literally just gonna say, the thing that plays the better, the soundtrack is amazing. Junkie XL, like he recently had talked about how he redid. So he had original tracks from the first time they were working on the movie, but when Snyder did the Snyder Cut, his true Snyder Cut, he redid the entire soundtrack.
Wow.
So. And you feel it right in the intro. 1 minute into watching the movie start, I turned over to my girlfriend. I'm like, she didn't make it through the movie, but it's okay. But like,
because it's 4 hours. We started watching at
12 a.m. Right? I'll give her that. I'll give it a pass. Okay, but I looked at her. I'm like, this is a different movie. I was already like, I'm already feeling this. The soundtrack is so good, so grand, good. So epic, so emotional. Oh my! And Hans Zimmer is not a crap composer either.
No,
but this Junkie XL killed it.
It just felt like its own thing. Like, unfortunately, what Hans Zimmer did, and like, I'll be honest, like, I marked out in theaters when I heard the Superman theme and the Batman theme that Zimmer included, or Elfman. I think Danny Elfman did.
Elfman's original ones. You mean the original ones?
Yeah, but didn't Elfman do the score for the Whedon cut?
I feel like it was Hans Zimmer, but I could be wrong. We could be wrong.
I mean, whatever they did, I'm like, I marked out for certain things, but it was so referential. And it was like, Snyder was never doing a reference to 89 or Reeves or any of that. He was doing his own thing. So to put that music in there, it's like when you play Arkham Knight and you're wearing the like Adam West suit, like it doesn't fit the world. Like, as much as you can,
that's a good analogy, man. That's a good analogy.
As much as you can like adjust the skin to fit properly, the Adam West suit does not apply to the Arkham Knight universe. It's more of like a novelty, but it's not a real thing. Like that music and especially the color grade, which I have to talk about. The color grade on the Whedon cut is so bad, so just offensive to the eyes, how much they brighten that movie. And you're like, what about Snyder's was too dark? It doesn't even feel like a dark movie.
I was gonna say that there's humor in it. It's all it doesn't. This movie does not feel dark. It just feels real to me.
It feels real. It feels like it has stakes and it has gravitas and it has like grit to it. Do you want to go over some of the things that didn't play for us, or? Yeah.
Let's do. Well, I want to. You know what? You alluded to it, so let's start with this scene and maybe. We'll see if this didn't play well for you, because I actually really enjoyed the nightmare scene in the epilogue that happened, but you said, I could have done without it. So maybe you could kick off with, why didn't you like it that much? Or, is it from a filmmaker perspective or whatnot?
From a filmmaking perspective, and you've gone on this journey. And again, I think that the ending they created was so strong, and it felt like a move. It felt like a bet hedging. Like, oh, if you didn't like the ending, we also have this. But I thought the ending was so strong with Superman's return and like blowing the cold breath and the axe turns frozen to dust, and then he just starts wailing on them, and like they're all just they're just like beating him to smithereens, and like you feel a little bit bad for Steppenwolf, but you're also like, yeah, that's what you got, Bo.
Yeah, you're still a dick.
Yeah, you're a bad guy. But like, it was such a good ending, and the Flash rewinding time and them like separating the Unity. to go into that and be like, but we still got some more. It just felt like, it's like I had the full course meal and then I had the cake. And then they were like, but we got an ice cream bar. And I was like, do I have to eat the ice cream? Like, eat the ice cream. And it's like, Mira, I thought was weird in there.
Yeah, I agree.
You got to talk about April Heard's crazy Shakespearean accent that she busted out for this one, which I was like, okay. Joe Manganiello, was nice to see him. I liked End of the World Cyborg. He looked cool. End of the World Flash felt like they didn't get Ezra Miller to do it, and they had like a stand-in that they comped his face on because he had no lines in it.
That's a funny point. I didn't think about that.
I was like, if it was about having a Batman Joker moment, I wish they would have did a Batman Joker moment in Arkham. Just post.
I mean, I get that too. Right? But here's why this is why I like the nightmare scene, because it at least, again, it's one of those connectors to the previous movies that tells you that that dream wasn't insignificant.
Yeah.
Right. To me, the nightmare scene tells me that, hey, this is a potential outcome, or right now it's in Bruce's head, right? But to be able to tell us that what we saw before in Batman versus Superman, with Superman being kind of the big bad, and maybe Darkseid does get the anti-life equation and influences him, or Superman just the big bad, it does at least say, hey, that meant something and could be a future. But I also just love the fact that we get to see, and some people, there were some like headlines, I don't know, it seemed a little extreme to be like, this is the greatest scene between Batman and Joker we've ever seen on film. I'm like, hold on. I'm like, have you forgot that Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson
were in a movie together? Like,
Heath Ledger won an Oscar for the scene with him and Christian Bale.
Can we pump some brakes?
I don't want to kill you.
It's like,
okay, internet, let's slow down a little bit. But I do love in that scene, I watched it like 3 times because I just thought it was kind of fascinating that you do definitely feel the history of all these years of back and forth. But now these two guys are a lot more weathered. We're in an apocalyptic world. How they even come off is different, but they still have that long, deep-rooted history. They allude to somehow maybe Bruce Wayne or Batman was responsible for letting Lois die. We don't know exactly. Harley Quinn dies in Batman's arms.
The funny thing about Mara, go ahead.
As a director, I don't like that epilogue. As a comic fan, the insinuation of because we're just out of Dark Knight's death metal, Dark Knight's metal, crazy multiverse stuff where you do see Batman and Joker team up. And Batman Who Laughs and all these kind of like weird hell spawn of Batman and as all the good he can do, all the terrible he can do.
Mm-hmm.
But when the Joker goes, in how many universes do you destroy everything? I'm like, I'm never not gonna get excited for something like that insinuation, because I am a fan of the multiverse, and I do love the idea that just because everything was resolved in the Snyderverse, in the Hellscape verse, there's still versions of these characters where things didn't work out, right? And that felt very comic booky to me. Yeah.
Okay,
let's go to moments you didn't like.
All right.
I mean, I think you know what, honestly, because you're a filmmaker by the nature of who you are, you probably see a lot more things than I do. So drop it on me, my man.
Things I didn't like. I felt there was a few indulgences on.
You mean not enough slow-mos? You mean we needed more slow-mos?
And I'll forgive a lot of the slow-mos because I think I was like, that's the style. That.
Yeah, I liked it.
When you go from BBS, so BBS has a handheld. He shot the movie very handheld. There aren't a ton of slow motion moments in BBS. There's a few, but he wanted a grittier ground level approach because it was the birth of Superman. Then when you go to BVS, you put the camera on a tripod, but it's very traditional in its movements. It's there isn't a ton of the slow-mo, but there's a lot of dollying and there's a lot of steady cam. There's a lot of moving around the characters. And I think it's really well directed, BBS, from a visual standpoint. Now with Justice League, he goes back to kind of what he did with Watchmen, where he sort of reached the apex of the Snyder style, which is everything is super slow motion. and every moment is like amplified by the slow motion nature. And it's like, it makes a ton of sense because you're talking about gods, you're talking about people with like great powers that have, and the things they do have ramifications for like the world. And I did like that. And I thought it all made sense. And I thought it made sense in stylistically for him. And in the movie, it was used really well. Some of the things I didn't like, the lady singing in the Aquaman scene.
That's so funny. Everyone talks about like, did we really need that? And did we need it for that long?
Yeah. Because I don't know exactly what it was for. And maybe if there was like subtitles and we sort of knew what she was saying, or
I mean,
or
other
the
than
significance of this, you know, like maybe
the song itself,
the song
like the
was a
reverend,
tale,
yeah,
something like that we never.
I see what you're saying.
I mean, I just assumed, look, it's them revering him as a god, right? But I still felt it was too long. Right? It was like their way of sending off the god back into the ocean. But again, it's not explicit, but you're like, okay, they're singing. Wait, okay, they're still singing. Wow, they're still really singing.
Yeah, my friend sent me, he literally sent me that video and that commentary. He was like, okay, cut and cut. And you can cut here, we can cut. And I was like, look, the first time I saw it, I got worried. Because I was like, man, I'm really loving this movie. I hope there aren't more indulgences like that, because I know what critics are going to say immediately. They're going to be like, all indulgence, like all filler, no real, like whatever. They're going to come up with some stupid.
Of course, they all do.
Yeah, they always do. But thankfully, that wasn't the case. Now, here's the thing where I think this was easily correctable, and I don't know why they didn't. Wonder Woman's voiceover talking about the history of the DC universe and the mother boxes was one of the worst VOs I've ever heard.
I totally agree. It felt really weak.
It was weak. There was no performance. It felt like a read. It felt like a clean read. It felt like, and then the men
I totally
put
agree
the
with you on
box
that
in the
one.
ground, and then the Amazons were upset. And like, her performance in the scene with him wasn't that weak. It was just really weak VO. Yep. And I'm like, I wish there was less of it because of how bad it is. Like, I wish she just introduced like in a time before, and then it just cuts, and then we just watch it play out, because the visuals are bananas. Visuals are absolutely amazing. The fact that like you got Ares shoulder to shoulder with Zeus and Apollo, and they're just like, just crushing, like crushing Darkseid, like the axe buried in him. He's like blood everywhere. Yeah. Green Lantern gets smoked. I know the Green Lantern got smoked in the Whedon cut, but like it just meant so much more seeing it in this one, because it was Darkseid and it was a serious battle.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought her VO was really bad. It was actually it was like I remember sitting there and being like, man,
it took me out of the movie.
Yeah.
It took me out of the movie. I remember that.
I was like, this is so for what's happening on screen. And it was like, like I hearken it back to, it's very WB thing. And that's what I loved about it too, because it made the movie feel like not only is this a DC superhero movie, this is like a WB Lord of the Rings. When Kate Blanchett is giving you the voiceover in the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring. And I'm like, you needed kind of like a Kate Blanchett to sell this, and Gal Gadot was not that. Gal Gadot was like doing a Geico ad, like she was just laying down a track, and it was like, all right, so that's a warm up, and she's like, gotta go, and they're like, that's in the movie now. It's in the movie.
That's a great point, because when I saw it, all I felt was like, man, I'm taken out of the movie right now. This is not strong, and then I enjoyed the action, but it was not strong at all.
It was not strong, and it was really, I think it definitely hurt it. I already said it before, but the Martian Manhunter first reveal, absolutely stupid, undercut your characters for what? Like, with Martian Manhunter? Yeah, like, I don't know. Like,
and he never appears in the movie the entire time. Until then. So it's not like he makes an impact in the story by having that cameo.
No,
that's one of those lame fan service things that you shouldn't do.
It was a lame fan service thing. I'm sad it's in there. I think his reveal at the end is fine. You could keep that. Yeah. That would have been way neater. But it was terrible where they used it. And I think it's just unfortunate that they did that. I'm like, what a great moment. And you kind of like ruined that moment, because it makes no sense. It makes no sense why he would want to motivate like even going back to their relationship in BVS and how he was in Man of Steel, the characterization doesn't work. That's not his relationship with Lois Lane. He fights Lois Lane tooth and nail over the weird bullet that was shot in the desert in the Ultimate Cut. And now he's like, no, the world needs you. Like, why would he care? He doesn't care. He's like, like it doesn't make sense. Yeah. And then he doesn't fight Steppenwolf at all with all his great powers. He's like, I'm just going to stay on the sidelines with my flowing
You guys
cape.
will be okay. You guys will be okay.
It's like, I just want to see you work together, guys.
And the CGI looked terrible.
Yeah, that felt like
either old CGI or basically WB's like, okay, we gave you 70 million.
Quit.
This is what you could do. We got to cut you off. I mean, Zack Snyder even said he could have tweaked it even more if he wanted to, but he was actually happy they kind of gave him a deadline to stop it, which is good too.
Yeah.
But yeah, the CG on Martian Manhunter, the face, I was like, oh, it reminded me of kind of Whedon cut Steppenwolf face models type stuff.
CW. It was like very CW. I was like, I don't think you needed that. So some of the CGI, in particular, when the Mercedes drives off with the Flash to get that wide shot of Central City, that looks kind of bad. Some of the compositing and the conversation scenes look kind of bad. Again, the second half of the movie, I felt like all the CGI was spot on. The earlier stuff, and I do think it was where they had to, again, when he adjusted it to the 4:3 aspect ratio, either fix CGI from the Whedon cut or add additional. And I just think it was just rushed. And I think like I would have cut those scenes and moments instead of hurt the overall aesthetic. I know there's like one shot in the Amazon fight, which I love the Amazon fight. I thought that was super
so
strong.
crazy. The Amazons
cool.
just were great in this movie, right?
Yeah, but there's a wide shot of Steppenwolf when he like getting shot with the arrows and he's fighting them, and I was like, that looks weak. I was like, I would have cut that from the movie. And then when the Amazons all ride up, the wide shot's dope, and then they cut into like a medium, and I'm like, that looks fake. I would have just left that out. No, because like at this point, when you're making a masterpiece, I'm like, is it worth it for the coverage? Like, you just stay on the wide shot. Like, why cut into a coverage that looks cheap when you could have easily just kept the wide shot and the illusion would have been solid throughout? So there was like a few times where I thought the CGI like just did a disservice to what was a really strong picture. Let's see. Besides that, really not much. I mean,
yeah, I mean, you're I mean, honestly, if you think about it, you're nitpicking some of these things. We're talking about little shots, but we're not talking about big thematic things. I mean, the biggest offense might have been, the Martian Manhunter scene, which took away from the meaning of the story. But in a 4-hour story, what a 1-minute interaction, there was nothing that came off as completely flawed to me. That's why it's hard for, by no means is the perfect movie, but damn, I love this movie.
I love this movie.
I love it. I mean, there are scenes and moments that I said this earlier, but like, I really want a theatrical cut. I kind of want all the bullshit cut out of it. I mean, not say bullshit, but like, I want some of the stuff that is strictly fan service removed and just that clean Justice League story. Batman and Diana forming the League and then having to make the decision to resurrect Superman, and then Superman coming around and beating Steppenwolf. Like, I would love to just see that movie with some of the frills kind of cut off it. Because I loved the Star Lab stuff. I like what they established with the Atom. I like what they established with a division that is investigating aliens and like what that affect, that it's more than just Kryptonians. I loved all that. I was like, this is so cool. This is like this really fleshes out the DC universe for me.
Yep.
I love that Lois Lane had a lot of, because Lois Lane is prevalent through the first 2 films, and then in the Whedon cut is like non-existent. And then just rolls up, like, send in the big guns. Like,
and yeah, that scene when Superman comes back, it was like, oh, she happened to be coming back to the site to visit Superman. It wasn't Batman calling her and saying, you got to come over here because we're bringing back Superman. Like, she's surprised by it.
Yeah, like she saves the day, actually, because Batman's about to get smoked.
Correct.
Dude, that fight sequence is bonkers. Like, I thought it worked in the Whedon cut, but it's even better in the Snyder Cut because of the color grading and the just the treatment of all the characters. Everyone has a moment to throw down with soups.
I think what you said is how I feel about pretty much every action scene that happens in this movie is better in the Snyder Cut. Actually, all the fight scenes are improved significantly by the Snyder Cut. Yeah. So you never feel like, oh, when I think about it, there were not moments where I felt actually that was worse than before, because in this movie, every moment and decision is earned. So you get that payoff at the end, right? There's a lot of times you get movies where sometimes like, well, okay, I guess. But in general, all these little beats that we get from these characters, it means something in the end. So it's, I just love the damn thing.
I do. I think it's great. I think it's awesome. Oh, this is my last true nitpick note of this. I don't like that bat suit. I like the BVS bat suit more. I think the BVS bat suit had bigger shoulders, so Ben Affleck's big ass head fit better. In this one, it looks like he has a giant ass head, and he just looks like bloat. I don't like the suit as much as the BVS suit.
The BVS suit was nice. I mean, whatever he might have put on, his weight might have changed from that.
In the when he has the armored joint, that one looks cool. But for some reason, the regular bat suit just didn't have the same. Because if you go back and watch BVS, that bat suit is really nice looking. It moves really well. It looks really good. This one, there's just something about it. There's something about the dimensions of it, like the anatomy of it, that just don't it looks like a muscle suit, and it doesn't look like anatomy.
A bat suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. Okay, so we have this movie. It's all done here. Now, there's obviously going to be a lot of talk about what happens from here. Will Zack Snyder come back in some way, shape, or form? Not to redo the rest of the universe, but they now have an opportunity to use this as a springboard, and whether that means for me, look, I don't expect Zack Snyder might be tapped out. I mean, a lot was taken from him during the process of this, right? He lost his daughter. That's one of the reasons why he stepped down. So this project means more than just being a completed project for him and his family. We as fans, we're so lucky that we get to see this, but it was, there was a cost for him, right? And so I don't know if that means he would want to just jump back in with WB, which is also the same company that told him your vision doesn't matter, but now that we need subscriptions for HBO Max, your vision matters. That's one of the things, he doesn't need them.
So what are your thoughts about? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. The good news is all those people are gone from WB.
Yeah, they're all gone. They're all gone.
I'm sorry to cut you off there.
That's fine.
But yeah. So all those people are gone. I do think I'll try to be as diplomatic as possible with this. If they are smart,
yes,
don't make a Justice League 2. If they're smart.
This is the thing, right? They had this in their pockets. Okay. They had this right in front of them. The narrative and the future path of the DC films and how the general audience views them would be so different if they just trusted the process, right? Trust the process, like the 76ers. They just need to trust the Snyder process, and they didn't. Like your Sixers, right? But they didn't. And so now you have this huge upswell of now genuine support. The movie critics are the movie critics, right? We know that they don't rate comic book movies as high. I don't care about that.
If it's a 4-hour movie, all right, you weren't. There's no critic in town that's going to watch a 4-hour movie unless it's Lawrence of Arabia or something, and not demolish it. I mean, The Irishman was demolished for being a 3-hour movie. There's, what I mean? There's a 4-hour movie is absolutely absurd. There's a ton of fan service in it. There's things that you're just not supposed to do as a filmmaker. The comic fandom be damned. As a filmmaker, as a critic, first of all, I don't respect many of the critics today anyway, because I don't think they're I try to look at consistencies in their reviews, and it's absolutely absurd. Whether it's they're far too idealistic or political, they're far too up their own butt in terms of film snobbery, or they judge every movie on a curve. Like they have no problem saying a Marvel movie is fun.
Marvel bias, major Marvel bias on it.
Yeah, like I've never heard that before. I've never seen someone like, if you are coming from academia, if you are a critic of something, how can you grade on a curve? How can you say something like, oh, there are problems with this movies, but ultimately it's fun? Like you can't say that. Like then you're not a true critic. You're someone who's making affordances. And that should never apply to cinema. Cinema should be how you feel and how you experience it. Now, it's one thing if you're a pop culture or an entertainment critic and you're writing for a magazine and you are there to actually sell tickets to a movie and you got to make it look as fun as possible. It's a whole nother thing if like Roger Ebert, I don't always agree with him, but like he had integrity or agreed with him. He had integrity with his reviews. He was consistent with his reviews. And something he would like clown one movie for that would be consistently clowned in another picture. It wouldn't be like, oh, well, this one was fun, so I gave it a thumb up.
Yeah.
But in this one, and like a friend of mine was like, well, DC tried to claim that they were like serious. And I'm like, okay, as serious as a fucking superhero movie can be, like, how serious is it? Like, it's not a movie about cancer. It's about like a superhero movie. So like, there's still elements of fun and, fancy and whimsy that are still being captured there. Yeah. Okay. It's a little bit darker. So what? But that doesn't mean now you take out like all your tools from film school and you're like, this is bad. I don't like this, the framing, the cinematography. Like I'll look at like Wonder Woman 84, which it was a bad movie across the board. And the critiques I see of it are so softball from film critics. And I'm like, how can you softball this movie? I don't care. Like you can't handicap. You can't be like, oh, well, it's like a female empowerment movie, so we can't. Like, no, is it a good movie or not? And like, I'm not taking a stance here either way. I just ask for consistency.
Yeah. So here's just something to chew on about, look, Rotten Tomatoes is an aggregate. So this is just an aggregate of what reviewers are at. But right now, at least on their tomato meter, it started early on at a 70. It went as high as like a 78. I remember right now it's stabilized at 74% with over 200 reviews. What do you think, if you haven't looked, the audience score with over 25,000 ratings, what do you think it might be at if you had to guess?
I know that I already looked. Last I looked, it was at 75%.
For the tomato meter, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But what about the audience score?
It was at 97% or something like that.
Yeah, it's at 96 right now. That's incredible, honestly. Like
that's incredible. That tells you something. 25,000 reviews.
25,000, 96%.
So there you go.
That's through the roof. And I read the mix of reviews after I watched it, right? And I was like, okay, there's too much coded language. There's too much baggage brought to this.
Yes, I totally agree.
Right? And it's
people had already made up their mind whether they liked it or not before they even saw the Snyder Cut. And you could tell how they wrote it.
I saw someone write, I see what Snyder's trying to do, but by no means did he sell me at any point in this movie. I was like, not one point in a 4-hour movie did you buy what he was selling. And I'm like, first of all, what level of psychopath do you have to be to sit through a 4-hour movie knowing that at not one moment will you release your tension and try to enjoy the experience? Because you can't make a statement like that. That's like, yo, I went to dinner with you and I didn't enjoy a single bite of food because you disgust me so much. Like, are you insane? Like that to me is more dangerous. Like I would just not review it. I'd be like, I chose not to review this because there's too much beef. So it's like, why put you through it and why put myself through it? Instead, some of these people, and I get like, granted, there are going to be people that have legit criticisms that you cannot argue with because it is a 4-hour movie full of indulgences, and that's fine. But like a lot of the criticism I see comes from a place where you're like, yo, but leave your baggage at the door, dude. Like you brought it front and center. Like, why would you bring all that to a 4-hour viewing?
Yep.
Doesn't make sense. Like just
like there were clearly critics that were already turned off, just like you said, for the pure fact that it was 4 hours. Like it was almost like, yeah, it's 4 hours, but what do you think the story accomplished in that? Did it really not accomplish anything in those 4 hours?
In those 4 hours, yeah.
Like at all?
I mean, also it's like one, it's broken up into chapter markers. You could have reviewed it like a show, like a mini series. Like as a reviewer, you're allowed to do whatever you want. You could be like, oh, this isn't like a typical situation, so I'm not going to review it like I would typically would. But you know, I think the toxic fandom that was, again, I think people really make broad statements when any level of toxicity comes in, because I'm like, that was a portion of them, but it wasn't the whole movement. I'm like, also, you have to look at, I'm kind of like a solution-based guy. I'm not a point a finger at a problem. Why are these guys so upset? Why are they so toxic? Is it maybe because something that they loved and were scorned for their whole life has become pop culture and they're now left out of the equation? And in a good versus evil battle, they've been made to be the bad guy? Like maybe some of that spills over. I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm saying in some instances,
it's the case.
It's the case, you know, it's the case. And it's like, it's guys that feel like, hey, we were over here buying these comics, reading these books, buying all the collectibles, buying the statues. Our opinion doesn't matter. And we're the ones spending all the money on your brands. And now we're like, what's wrong with comics? Like we were comics. We were the reason comics existed.
There's such a true ownership to that. You're absolutely right about that. Okay, so we talked about the tomato score, the audience score. Mr. Nicholas Gregorio.
Okay.
What would you score this movie for yourself from a scale of 1 to 10?
Ooh.
I know. How about this? The critic and the comic book lover. Because I think those are two different brains, maybe.
Comic book. Okay, I appreciate that. Because that
right? I think so.
Comic book lover, 10 out of 10.
Woo! 10
out of 10. As a comic fan, 10 out of 10. You can't. I'm sorry. I don't care who you are. If you claim to be a fan of comics, this does it. This does what the best comics do. If you're a fan of DC, if you know Cosmic Odyssey, if you know Dark Side War, if you know the Kirby New Gods run, if you know the epic scale with which DC likes to play, then you love this. Those comics are all indulgence. If you like Final Crisis or Infinity
comics
War,
are indulgence. Period.
Yeah. If you like Infinity War, if you like Infinity Gauntlet, if you like things on an indulgent grand scale, yeah. Crisis on Infinite Earths is an indulgence of the highest regard. If you like that, then you like this. If you like the Grant Morrison JLA run, then you like this movie. It has all those things. It has all the things you would want from a Justice League movie. I get it. If you're like, oh, they killed Steppenwolf, they would never do that. I'm like, okay, you can
it's make a movie, guys,
and stuff, but it's a movie. And also, like, yeah, if he's a real threat, like, what are you going to let him live? Like, go back and hang out with Darkseid and devise a plan to. It's not a cartoon, right? It's not like, oh, well, we'll save the day again. So I think in that regard, 10 out of 10. As a film critique, and again, this would be higher with a true theatrical cut of this.
Okay.
I think a true theatrical cut of this, you're talking about a 9 out of 10. But as a critic, I would say a 7.5 out of 10.
Solid. Yeah. I see where you're coming from. Because for me, I've told all my friends I'm giving this somewhere between like an 8 and a 9 because I'm kind of seeing both sides. Like the fan of me, 10 out of 10. Yeah. But if I went into this, I mean, with some reference knowledge, it's like 8.59 for me.
I mean, I loved the damn thing.
I mean, I loved it. I'm on my second watch now, and it's a little bit easier to see the moments where you're like, okay, and it's really, I think really what set it back for me to like put it like a 7.5 is that Martian Manhunter scene.
Come on, Zach. All he had to do was not do that.
Only because it's so important. It's such an important. I'm telling you, if you are a fan of the Snyderverse stuff, it's such an important moment And to throw it away for a Martian Manhunter cameo is just
I hate that.
frivolous. It's just frivolous. It's just a frivolous waste of screen time. And it's like, it didn't, I mean, what do you like? Oh, like that's all you could do is like, oh, snap. Like there's no payoff to it besides you being like, oh,
there's no meaning to it.
There's no meaning to it. It doesn't mean anything.
It would be like, and thank goodness they didn't do it, in WandaVision, there were all these stupid ass theories of who's going to cameo on this show, and it's a WandaVision show. And I would have been like, if they threw in Reed Richards for 30 seconds, I would have been like, great.
That's
thanks.
it. We were talking about this before, but that is what Martian Manhunter is. He's if Reed Richards showed up in episode 7 and was like, I'm Reed Richards. And like, okay, there he is. Like that. Like that's it. You did it. That's it. That's what it would be.
It would kill it. It would kill it.
It would kill it. I'm Reed Richards. I'm a scientist. Like that's
great. Thanks.
Thank you. Gotta go.
I guess we'll see you in 4 years. We'll see you in 4 years,
buddy. Damn, dude.
That's what it was. It was basically like, yeah, hey, I'm Reed Richards, Fantastic Four, gotta go. And then that's it. You're like, he's like, I'm Martian Manhunter. Look at all my cape. And then he's like, bye. I have a cape.
So,
all right, bro. Do you have any other final thoughts before we wrap up this epic spoiler-filled review between you and me? This is just fun to talk about. I don't care if only my mom watches this. We do it for each other, man.
Yeah, we do it. We do it for the love of the game.
Love of the game, baby.
I want a Justice League 2. You need to. You can't show me Darkseid. You can't show me Darkseid. You can't show me a Justice League United with Superman, with Bruce Wayne insinuating they're going to build out the headquarters in the rubble of Wayne
Mansion
Manor. Yeah. You got to give it to us. I'm sorry. I like
Deathstroke knowing that now. Deathstroke now knowing that it's Bruce Wayne. That was a twist. That was a change from the end credit scene of the Whedon cut.
Yeah.
You know, it was more like, oh, do you in that cut?
He says,
Eisenberg,
you want to join they have their own league.
Like a Legion of Doom, right? Yeah. They're planting this idea like, oh,
or Injustice Gang or whatever.
Yeah, very different than saying, hey, Deathstroke, you have a contract. Oh, yeah, by the way, Batman's Bruce Wayne. Like, okay. Like, what happens there?
Yeah, that's, no, because then you have two threats, right? That's one of my favorite ways of doing the league. You have a cosmic threat, and then you have, like, a ground level threat. And it's like they both require, like, you can't just have Superman smoke Deathstroke, because that's when you cross the line. Like, yeah, he can battle Steppenwolf full bore, but he can't, like, smoke Deathstroke, because then you're like, dude, you just killed that guy. Like,
you just like, bing,
like you could have restrained him. You didn't have to like dust him, but like, no, come on, man, just give it to it. Get it over. I think that's it. I don't think Snyder's going to want to do any more after that. I think the fans will be satiated. I think this movie, well, I talked to a few people and I was like, you got to tell me what the numbers are, because I think the numbers are bonkers on this one.
Yeah.
Everyone I know turned it on at midnight. Whether you finished it or not, that's a different thing. But I watched for 2.5 hours midnight. Yeah. And then like everyone wrapped it up at some point. But like the numbers got to be bonkers on this. The rewatches, and I'm like, dude, what the rewatches got to be through the roof too. And then if you compare it to the other stuff HBO put out this year, please, probably dust at them. Like,
it's going to dust everyone. I mean, the only other, let's see, what movies am I looking forward to? Well, we have Suicide Squad is coming this year. Mortal Kombat's coming this year. You know, we're just talking about films on HBO Max, but to your point, like those blockbuster kind of pop culture moment type movies, is there really anyone that's going to be able to top this?
Dune? No, I don't think. I mean,
I don't think Dune has that.
Mortal Kombat. Guys like us watch that, but like regular folks are like, "Oh, what? I'm not going to watch a movie where people
like
just fight the whole day."
A
fighting game movie. The Suicide Squad, I think it's cool. I think it's going to be so quirk. It's going to fall into like kind of a different category. You know, it's not going to be a straight up like layup. Yeah, I think the people that are excited for it are excited for it. Like, I'll be there, of course. I know you'll be there, but I think you're. This is like a cultural movement.
So unique.
And it's still Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, and Cyborg, Darkseid, Granny Good, like you're talking about like Lois Lane, you're talking about characters that have existed for like 100 years now, or coming on 100 years. And I just think, can you get bigger than that? And if you have the possibility,
you can't. No,
right? We got the Flashpoint movie coming out, but Black Adam got delayed, and I think that's making Black Adam The Rock is the worst movie you could do, because
I feel like honestly, it's like you're gonna make it like a poppy, like, I mean, maybe let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he gets really serious and dark, but I just never in my entire life would have imagined or even wanted The Rock to be Black Adam.
It's gonna be a weird, different take.
Who was that struggling actor version who was looking to find his place in Hollywood would have been a great Black Adam. I think The Rock caricature a la Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone, he's not going to do anything that makes him look bad.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to do anything where there isn't some like familial message, because that's his brand, right? Like he's going to just be misunderstood and tough. But I just think that's such a missed opportunity to find someone who could battle Superman one-on-one in a very, like, you got like Shazam, Superman, and Black Adam could have been a really cool movie.
Mm-hmm.
But see, if he becomes an anti-hero, if he becomes basically Batman, but as Shazam, come on, like it's not the same. It becomes a Rock vehicle. It doesn't become
exactly.
A Black Adam movie.
Most of the things that he does now are Rock vehicles, quite honestly. And to me, that's a casting that feels like it was the execs up top that said, "Get us the biggest star possible. We'll just put him in a property." That's what I feel. And knowing how they think, you know what I mean. So
exactly, they're like, "Why don't we have The Rock?" That's what they said. They were like, everyone has these big stars. Why don't we have The Rock? He's the biggest movie star in the world. He needs to be a superhero. And like,
the best way they could
schedule. But the
best way they can kill that movie. The best way they can kill that movie is have Kevin Hart be like a sidekick in it. Yeah, you're like, bro. Dude.
They got that one dude, that like young Italian kid. He's Adam Smasher.
Oh yeah.
Which
I don't know what his name is.
He's like the new hot like dude in Hollywood, and I'm like, wait, Adam Smasher. I'm like,
I was like, dude, I was like, Adam Smasher, Black Adam, like what? Okay.
No, don't. They might do it. Don't even say. Don't put it out in the ether, because that might be why he called himself.
What do you think? What are you thinking?
Like Adam ADAM Smasher.
Stop,
dude. They might do. You don't know.
I don't want to do this.
All you need is one clever screenwriter to be like Adam Smasher, Black Adam. He's gonna stop. They're gonna do it.
Yo,
See,
this is like Martha 2.0, bro.
Oh my god.
Hey, your name's Adam. My name's Adam too.
Oh. Or no. I'm saying his origin is that he's trying to defeat Black Adam, so he's like the Adam Smasher.
Dude.
I'm serious.
Hey, that's straight out of like the 70s.
No,
like,
dude, that's an early aught stuff. That's
even earlier.
But I'm going back to that, like Aquaman 2, who's really stoked on that? Shazam 2, who's really stoked on that? Dude, give us Justice League 2. Just do it. Momoa, he loves Snyder.
Oh yeah,
all day.
They're bros. They're bros.
They're bros. Gal Gadot, you gotta know she hated what's going on with Wonder Woman 84 deep down. You know that's gotta like be just eating at her like, oh, we dropped the ball.
But maybe not. If they had a fun time making it, you know what I mean? Like we're not on those sets. They could have had a ball making it. They could have been really proud of it, and they could have said the audience didn't get what we were doing. And I'm gonna say we got what you're doing. It just wasn't good.
Yeah.
But I feel like her and Patty Jenkins have a really good relationship. So
all right, yeah,
I think that they probably really enjoyed that, but the end result just was not. And it's hard when you have a villain like that who was. When the Mandalorian takes his mask off, sometimes you just put it back on.
Put it on.
Hey, I'm just being.
It's very bloated.
So,
I think what I'd like to see from them is absolutely see a Justice League 2, but I think that, there's this whole, right, WB wanted to be like Marvel. They made the Whedon cut. Marvel has their serialized thing going on. I think that the Snyder Cut finally showed the comic book and general fan that you can make an amazing, successful comic book-based movie
that is not like Marvel's, because we quite honestly haven't seen that.
Right. So this is finally the
blueprint of like, this is the path that you can do it differently and still get the critics to like it, get the fans to like it. I think that's important for them to see that. And so I hope that whether they use HBO Max as a vehicle to continue this kind of, they're unique because they can create a lot more multiverse type self-contained stories. We're going to see that in Matt Reeves' Batman. And I don't know how self-contained the Flash feels like it's more connected to the DCEU, or at least is going to be that connector with everything that we've seen.
But that's comics, right? Like,
yeah.
The Batman Monthly doesn't link to the Justice League comic, and the Flash comic doesn't link to either of those. There's some connective tissue, and they're all continuity, they're all canon, but for the most part, it's like Batman is in Gotham solving problems in Gotham. And in a Justice League book, he is part of an ensemble trying to take down a cosmic threat. And it's like, they could exist. It's not I don't think there's a problem with that. And how many spin-offs and one-shots and miniseries are taking place now that are technically outside of the main continuity? Or does that even matter in a cinematic sense that there's a main continuity? And I agree with you where it's like, you're not going to find another Kevin Feige.
Nope.
To ascend to that level, someone who's like an Ivy League smarty pants is not going to be also the one who's like, and I love comic books and I love getting them right. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, they're going to be like, I love money and I love my Ferrari. How can I get more of my Ferrari? Like, that's it. Like, Kevin Feige just happened to be like a nerd that snuck in and he was like, I like Marvel comics. Like, get out of here, nerd. And he made Iron Man, which everyone was like, yeah, good luck with that. And then it turned out,
look what happened.
Dude, don't even get me started on Iron Man. When people try to pretend like Marvel was a mess until Robert Downey Jr. came in. That was it.
Look, who, and this is not us being any type of gatekeeper into the comic book world, geek fandom world, but Iron Man was at best to me a C-level hero when I read comics. I wouldn't even put him in the B level. Okay. I wouldn't even put him in the B. He was C or lower. And
his book got canceled all the time. His book always got canceled. It was Ultimates was the best version of Iron Man. That Tony Stark, where he was like an alcoholic womanizer. Before that, he was like a mustache. He was like, hello, I am Iron Man. Like, he had like, it was like cornball. Like, no one was into him. His cartoon got canceled. All that stuff. He was not a character that people cared about. And then RDJ basically defined the cadence, the style, the quirk, the comedy, the drama of what that world was. And they were like, oh, we got it. We could build from him.
Totally.
That's how we do it. And it's like, I love Ben Affleck as Batman, but like, he's not that. He like, they wanted him to be that, but it's so difficult to do that with Batman. It's so hard,
especially with Batman,
to make him this dark, brooding dude that's also really charming, because you got to do a lot of Bruce Wayne work. And it's like, how do you fit Bruce Wayne into a BBS type world and then in a Justice League world? Like, it's hard to mix them, but Justice League does a great job with Bruce Wayne.
It does. I loved it.
Yeah.
It's just not going to be the same type of franchise. It just can't, and you don't want it to be.
No.
Like, it just wouldn't feel as authentic. So I'm with you, man. Justice League 2. What is it? 2021? What are we going to say? We're going to throw it out. 2023, 2024? Going to fast track it?
Dude, I think he can fast track it. I bet you has the storyboards.
Yeah. He knows what he wants to do.
It's going to be a lot of comping. I would just say, if I was WB, I'd be like, look, you got HBO Max miniseries. We don't want to do another 4-hour movie because it's too difficult for people to sit through. We want to give you a miniseries. It's a 5-episode miniseries, or it's an 8-episode miniseries. You get to wrap up the whole story. So if you need, whatever you were trying to do, here's your 5 episodes. Here's your $250 million budget. Don't bother us again. We're both like, and I mean that because it's like, does he want to really make another superhero movie?
No, I don't think I honestly,
the last one. No, that's it.
He's probably tapped out.
Darkseid. Roll credits, and then we're done. Like, that's it. That's the end of the Justice League movie, like the Snyderverse. So I would be like, yo, if you want to do a director's cut, we'll release the Blu-ray. We love doing that. We make a ton of money on those stupid things, but this is what we want for HBO Max. You in? Deal. Limited theatrical, but it's its main window is HBO Max and it's done as a series. I think Snyder would be like, sounds great, let's do it. And I think you would get Momoa. I think you get Affleck. I think you get Gal Gadot. I think you get Ezra Miller. Ray Fisher, definitely.
He would definitely come back. He would come back. He would come back for Zack Snyder.
I feel terrible with how that whole thing played out with him. The dude deserves a second chance. He was really great in True Detective season 3. And he's great in this movie. And I think he deserves another shot with working with WB again. Amy Adams, I don't know.
I was going to say, I'm okay. I mean, does she need to be in the next one? Not really.
No.
Superman's back.
Money talks. So, money's money. And I don't think anyone's going to be, especially after this year. Or after 2020, I don't think anyone's gonna be like, nah, I'm good.
All right, bro.
Well, I'm out here. I'm like sweating my butt off.
Yo, man,
it's getting hot
this is
in the
awesome.
garage.
This is like,
I don't know what the running time is, but I think we almost hit 2 hours. We probably could have talked more, but I think we should cap it here. I feel like I've looked at your face too long.
I know. I'm sweating to death. Let's go.
Hey, Nick, can you tell people where maybe they can kind of find some of the stuff that you're doing, or some of the projects you're working on as well? Like, how do you want people to maybe track you down?
I'm kind of off social media right now, but I'm in post-production on a feature film. We shot it during quarantine. We shot it very safely, made like a bubble. It's not a quarantine movie. So it's a real movie. It does take place in the time of COVID, but it's not about COVID. It's a horror thriller. So, but it's about 3 friends that go up to Big Bear to break quarantine and reconnect, and they find something in the deep, dark woods.
So awesome, man.
So we're in post-production on that right now. I do some stuff with Amazon. I was doing stuff with DC, but I don't know.
Weren't we all?
Where are we all? And no, I just I was just really glad to talk to you, man. Like, we're homies in part. We do this stuff over the phone and in person, and it was great to finally do something official. So
yes, sir. That's awesome. All right, Nick. Well, thanks for hanging out, buddy. I'll text you tomorrow, whatever.
It's easy like that.
all right.
All right. See you later, bro.
Take care. Bye.